In this presentation, we will be looking at 6 case studies regarding accountants and auditors in relation to money laundering and terrorist financing activities. Indicators of money laundering activity in this case study are: activity is inconsistent with customer profile, structured deposits clustered over a period of time, structured withdrawals clustered over a period of time, transactions occurring in a cluster made by the same person who conducted international wire transfers to countries known to be high-risk terrorism financing jurisdictions. Accountant misused power to conduct fraud. An accountant employed by an educational institution and another company was alleged to have defrauded these two organizations of approximately $292,000 Australian dollars. The accountant's method was to redirect company payments for legitimate invoices to his personal account. When the payment reminder for the invoice was received, he organized payment to the creditor. The accountant wrote an invoice for double payment and claimed one payment himself. The accountant also created false invoices to himself from the company. A bank lodged an STR with FIU detailing the accountant's suspicious conduct involving high-value cash, check deposits, and withdrawals. The basis of this suspicion was that none of the transactions were over $10,000, which is the Australian threshold, and the transactional activity did not correspond with the profile of the customer. FIU information also detailed the accountant's use of wire transfers to two high-risk terrorism financing jurisdictions. These transactions were between amounts of $4,000 and $11,000 Australian dollars and were all conducted through the same bank branch within several days of each other. The accountant was arrested and ultimately charged with multiple counts of fraud. Indicators of money laundering activity in this case study: client's affairs involve company incorporated in an offshore jurisdiction. Wire transfers involving an offshore tax haven. Company used tax haven country to evade tax. An Australian resident company that was receiving funds from a known offshore tax haven was the subject of an audit. The director of the company was also connected to another company established in a tax haven. This tax haven company had purchased shares in a UK company and then sold them for a substantial capital gain. Some of the profits were repatriated to Australia via the use of false invoices issued by the Australian resident company, and the funds entered the country through large wire transfers, all in an attempt to avoid paying tax. As a result of the audit, the director was assessed on income earned from worldwide sources and agreed as part of the settlement to cease his involvement in the tax haven-based company and repatriate all funds held in overseas jurisdictions. As a result, approximately 1.4 million AUD in tax and penalties were raised. Indicators: multiple deposits made in the same geographical location. Use of gatekeepers, meaning accountant. Use of safety deposit boxes. Multiple wire transfers involving a high-risk drug country. Accountant assisted in drug importation and money laundering. Law enforcement launched an investigation into allegations that a Colombian-based syndicate was involved in the regular importation of commercial quantities of cocaine into Australia. The proceeds of the sale of the drugs were allegedly repatriated back to the US and laundered through the black market peso exchange. Inquiries conducted with the US and Australia indicated that the offenders had purchased a debt owed to the Colombian-based syndicate in exchange for cash received in Australia. It is suspected that the offenders made payments to a member of the syndicate in Colombia before traveling to Australia to receive the cash. Investigations established that the syndicate enlisted the services of an accountant to assist with the laundering process. Money was laundered through a foreign exchange company, which remitted funds to various bank accounts overseas. Once the foreign exchange company and the syndicate had agreed on the rate to exchange Australian dollars into US dollars, a member of the syndicate deposited cash into accounts held by the foreign exchange company at various inner-city banks. The syndicate had arranged for the foreign exchange company to remit these funds to overseas bank accounts as soon as they were deposited. The syndicate had also opened a safe deposit box at a bank, where they stored approximately $800,000 in cash. As a result of the law enforcement operation, 3 members of the syndicate were arrested in Australia in possession of approximately $2.6 million in cash. The 3 were charged with money laundering. Indicators of money laundering activity in this case study: false invoicing, wire transfers involving an offshore tax haven. Accountant used tax haven country in offshore scheme. An Australian accountant became the subject of an audit after it was identified that a number of entities situated in a tax haven country had been transferring money to an account linked to the accountant. Auditors discovered that the accountant had enlisted high net worth clients to participate in an offshore scheme. The scheme involved the creation of false invoices for overseas expenses which were purportedly incurred in setting up an offshore business. These invoices were then used to support claims for tax deductions and losses claimed in tax returns. The accountant received a fee for the scheme, and the money sent overseas was returned to the clients as fictitious loans. As a result, approximately $895,000 in tax and penalties were raised. Indicators of money laundering activity: wire transfers involving an offshore tax haven. Company director misused family trust. An Australian publicly listed company and one of its directors came to the notice of auditors during a taxation audit of another taxpayer. Information identified a very large international fund transfer instruction relating to the sale of shares in the Australian company by a British Virgin Islands company. The BVI company had subsequently transferred large sums of money back to a family trust in Australia. Further financial analysis identified an additional large wire transfer from another BVI entity to purchase shares in a private company controlled by the taxpayer. The trust and the individuals involved had not lodged tax returns for a number of years. As a result, approximately $2.8 million in tax and penalties were raised. Use of gatekeeper to potentially layer funds. The Fiji FIU received an STR from a commercial bank on 2 individuals, Person K and Person L. Both individuals are foreign nationals and are directors of Company J. Person K is reportedly a student. Person L is reportedly retired. Both individuals arrived to Fiji on 1st of February and departed Fiji on the 5th of February of 2016. The indicators of money laundering activity: use of accountant as a gatekeeper to facilitate alleged layering of funds. Occupation of investors is unclear. The FIU conducted checks and established that Company J was incorporated and is registered in the Republic of Seychelles. There was a mention of another entity, Company R, which is reportedly based in Switzerland. Both Person K and Person L mentioned that they are expecting a transfer of €29 million from Company R to Company J's bank account in Fiji. Person K and Person L engaged a local accounting firm in Fiji to assist with the opening of the bank account of Company J with a local bank in Fiji. On the 5th of February, the local accounting firm requested that bank officers meet with Person K and Person L at the office of the accounting firm to open a foreign currency Euro bank account. The local bank was informed of the €29 million transfer from Company R. On 11th of February, the local bank closed the bank account as there was insufficient documentation provided to open the account. On 19th of February, Person K engaged another local bank to open a Euro account. The FIU issued a case report to a foreign FIU for possible attempted layering activities by the individuals and associated entities.